Today, I'm going to tell you about the suspicious disappearance of Tara Calico. When Tara Calico vanished in New Mexico, things didn't look too hopeful. Smashed pieces of her cassette player were found in the area, and it seemed as if she'd been abducted and maybe even slain by that point. But over a year later, a Polaroid photo was found in a Florida parking lot with a girl in it that looked just like Tara. So was it her? And did anyone ever find her? Let's see. Tara Calico was a 19-year-old sophomore at the University of New Mexico. She lived in Belen, New Mexico with her mom, Patty, and stepdad, John. On the morning of September 20th, 1988, Sarah set out for a 34-mile bike ride, which was a typical activity for Tara. Homegirl loved riding her bike, and she was one of those athletic beasts who could pedal for miles on end. Tara left home at around 9:30 a.m. on her pink Huffy mountain bike. She headed out on her usual route along Highway 47 with her Sony Walkman cassette player blasting Boston. This ride typically took just a couple of hours, and when Tara left that morning, she told her mom, "If I'm not home by 12 p.m., come look for me." This was because Tara was having issues with her bike. She also made plans to play tennis with her boyfriend at 12:30 p.m. that day, so I'm guessing Tara just warned her mom in case her bike broke or something. That way, Patty could pick her up so Tara could still make it to tennis. Another reason Tara may have given that warning was because she'd had some sketchy encounters on previous bike rides. Patty mentioned that she used to go on this route with her daughter until she was harassed by a motorist. Patty warned Tara to take pepper spray with her, but wasn't going to hold back her adult daughter from doing something she loved. Well, noon came and went, and Tara still hadn't come home, so Patty and John went out to look for their daughter. They drove Tara's typical route and couldn't find her anywhere, so they called the police to report Tara missing. By the next day, a full-on search team had been assembled, and law enforcement officials, friends, family members, and concerned citizens took to the streets looking for Tara. As Patty scoured the area, she discovered a Boston cassette tape and pieces of a Sony Walkman lying on the shoulder of the road. That was the same cassette tape and player Tara took when she left. This couldn't be a coincidence. With that, Patty theorized Tara had been abducted, and she left the cassette tape and player behind as a clue to help officials find her. In the surrounding area, investigators found bike tracks, tire tracks, and an oil slick. It seemed like this may have been the location where Tara was approached by an assailant. To me, it sounds like some creep screeched up to Tara in their car, got out, and attempted to abduct her. I'm guessing some sort of fight broke out, which is probably why the cassette was in pieces, and Tara couldn't get away from her abductor, but was smart enough to leave a clue behind. Since the bike wasn't found, the bad guy must have taken it in the car or found a way to destroy it. So if someone took Tara against her will, who was it? Once her story hit the news, several witnesses came forward saying that they saw Tara out riding her bike that day. One person reported seeing Tara riding her bike sometime around 11:30 a.m. and said there was a sketchy pickup truck trailing closely behind her. The witness said they didn't think much of it at first because they thought it could have been someone Tara knew who was just making sure everything was going smoothly with her bike ride. And while I want to be mad at this witness for not saying something sooner, I somewhat understand where they're coming from. A lot of people who run and bike super long distances will have friends or family check in on them along the way, or even follow them the whole time. But still, it sounds to me like this witness thought the truck seemed suspicious, and I wish they'd acted on that gut feeling and gone to the police. While some reports say there may have been 2 trucks following Tara that day, most people believe there was just one. It was described by witnesses as a light-colored Ford pickup truck. Over time, police came up with a more specific description to spread to the public. They were looking for someone with a gray or dirty white 1954 Ford F-150 with a white handmade camper shell on top. Now, Tara was a smart girl, and she'd sadly dealt with creepers in the past. But since she was in the zone, blasting her cassette player, detectives assumed she must not have noticed the truck trailing slowly behind her. Anyway, the search for Tara was unsuccessful, and even though it appeared as if she tried to leave clues, the police were unable to locate her. There were a few alleged sightings of Tara in the South in 1988 and 1989, but they were never confirmed. Later on in 1989, though, something very concerning was reported. So on June 15th, a woman in Port St. Joe, Florida, stopped by the local convenience store to grab a few things. Before walking inside, she saw a white van next to her and didn't think much of it. While the woman was inside, the van must have left, but when she made her purchase and walked out, she noticed a Polaroid picture lying face down in the parking spot where the van was. She crouched down, grabbed the photo, and flipped it over to reveal a disturbing visual. In the image, it looked like there was a teenage girl and a little boy lying on a makeshift bed in the back of a van or bus or something. They were both looking directly at the camera with black duct tape over their mouths and their hands tied behind their backs. Super unsettling, right? Especially given the fact that there was a van in that spot just a few seconds earlier. Was the photo taken in that van? Were there two hostages back there? As I'm sure you can imagine, this wasn't a visual that this woman could just unsee or not think about. There was no way she could just flip the photo back over and go about her day, so she took it to the police. A Gulf County sheriff on the case mentioned both kids in the photo looked absolutely terrified. He said, "It obviously is two kids with terror written all over them. It's kind of a bad time when you have to look at something like that. No one knows for sure if the picture was a setup. Some people think it was a staged photograph, but it was a real look of fear to me." So, not sure if you know this, but the famous singer Marilyn Manson admitted to dropping creepy photos like that in public areas in Florida as a prank in the past. That is such a specific and awful prank. At first, some people thought this picture could have been a prank like that, maybe even touched by the hands of Marilyn Manson himself. But the sheriff said he felt this picture was legit. And when the woman from the gas station gave it to the police, they asked her to describe the van and its driver. She told them she saw a white, windowless cargo van, and the man driving it had a mustache and looked like he was in his 30s. Sadly, the detectives on this case weren't able to identify this man, his van, or the two people in the photo. The background was so dark, there was no way they could tell where it was taken either. With that, the photo was sent out in hopes that someone would recognize something or someone in it. That July, it was shown on the TV show A Current Affair. Patty caught a glimpse of the girl in the photo and did a double take. That looked like her daughter, Tara. She even had the exact scar Tara had on her leg from a car accident. And the book in the picture? Yeah, that was Tara's favorite book, My Sweet Audrina by V.C. Andrews. Gosh, what a crazy realization. I can't even begin to think of the rush of emotions that washed over Patty when she made that connection. Like, I'm sure there was some sense of relief that there was more evidence to move the case along, but at the same time, how scary is the setup of it all? Was Tara even still alive? Because based on the look of things, she was in imminent danger. Something really crazy about this whole situation is that Tara was abducted in New Mexico, and this image was discovered over 1,500 miles away in Florida. One, that caused a shadow of doubt for investigators about whether or not Tara was the girl in the photo. Two, if that was Tara, how did she get all the way to Florida? Who was holding her captive, and who was the boy next to her? At this point, it had been almost a full year since Tara disappeared, and if there's anything we know, there's a lot that can happen in a year. All that to say, it's not the strangest thing ever for Tara's abductor to take her to Florida. Maybe he tried to get as far away as possible from the scene of the crime so no one would recognize Tara. Maybe the criminal was from Florida originally and was just visiting New Mexico when he snatched Tara, and maybe he just put a pin on the map and started driving. Who knows? As for the boy in the photo, that's up in the air too. There was a boy named Michael Henley Jr. who went missing in New Mexico back in 1988, the same year and state as Tara's case. That April, Michael went on a camping trip with his dad and a close family friend in the Zuni Mountains, located in the northwest region of New Mexico. Once they arrived, they started to set up camp, but just 20 minutes in, Michael vanished. When they noticed Michael was missing, Michael's dad and his friend immediately stopped what they were doing and began to search for their third camping buddy. They thought he may have just wandered off into the wilderness, but they couldn't find him anywhere. In a matter of 20 minutes, Michael had literally disappeared off the face of the earth with no trace. Eventually, the police were looped in on the whole thing, and for the next month, there was a huge search of the area. Members of law enforcement, the National Guard, and relatives of Michael's were out there scouring the land, but none of them had any luck in tracking the boy down. And at some point during the investigation, there was a huge snowstorm. So that didn't help the case at all. Well, fast forward to 1989 when this Polaroid photo starts circulating through the media. Somewhere along the way, the Henleys saw it and said the boy in the photo was Michael. That had to take a lot for them to come forward with something like that. And it's a big claim, but at the same time, parents are pretty good at recognizing their children, so I'd believe it. And if the boy in the photo really was Michael, it would almost make Tara's case stronger, right? If she and Michael were both from New Mexico, went missing in the same time frame, and now they're recognized in the same picture found in Florida, that definitely seems like a lead to consider. Well, investigators did. A forensic artist was asked to review pictures of Tara and Michael and compare them to the parking lot photo. The artist came back saying they were 85% sure that Tara and Michael were the ones in the photo. But in 1990, that conclusion would be discredited, at least about the boy's identification. In June of 1990, Michael's remains were found in the Zuni Mountains, just a few miles away from where he went missing. Coroners determined he'd passed away from hypothermia, and no foul play was suspected. This really was one of those tragic freak accidents where Michael got lost, couldn't find his way back, and over time started to deteriorate from exposure to the elements and lack of food and water. This is an awful thought, but it makes me wonder if Michael heard anything or anyone during the mass search in the mountains and he was just too weak to get their attention. To this day, Tara still hasn't been found, and it's never been officially confirmed whether or not Tara is the girl in the photo, but most people believe she is. Okay, so let's skip ahead to 2008. That's the year a New Mexico sheriff named Rene Rivera publicly stated he knew what happened to the woman. He claimed there were 2 local teens involved in Tara's abduction, but said their participation and the crime was covered up with the help of family and friends. Sheriff Rivera said the individuals who did the harm to Tara knew who she was. They knew who she was, and they're all local individuals. And I believe that the parents of the attackers were some of the people that helped the individuals with hiding the truth or hiding the body or trying to escape prosecution, said Rivera. He then went on to claim the family of the 2 alleged suspects know where the body is, and he thinks it's somewhere close. But why would those 2 teens be out to get someone like Tara? Well, Tara was a beautiful and athletic girl with a great personality. Sheriff Rivera suspects the boys were into her and planned a way to get her attention. He thinks they drove up to her while she was riding her bike, and the exchange somehow ended up with them accidentally hitting her with their car. Instead of notifying the authorities, the boys tried to cover up the whole thing and dispose of Tara's body. And if you're anything like me, you're probably wondering how Sheriff Rivera came up with this story. Well, he apparently received information about these 2 men hitting Tara with their truck. It's not clear who gave him the information or when, but I guess he took that theory and ran with it. But here's one of the most frustrating parts about this case. Since Tara's body has yet to be found, not much can happen in the case. If there's no body, there's no conviction. So Sheriff Rivera pretty much just gave Tara's family the false hope that they were going to potentially get justice. Tara's stepdad expressed frustration towards the sheriff for coming out with these claims if he wasn't going to do anything about them. Yeah, it's like, why diagnose a problem if you're not going to fix it? Fast forward to now, Tara's case remains unsolved, and even though her mom and dad have passed away, other family members of hers that are still alive continue to keep up the search. It's unclear if Tara is the girl in the photo and the boy in the photo is still unidentified, but in 2009, police officers in Port St. Joe, Florida, received a letter with another picture that featured a young boy. The boy in this photo looked an awful lot like the boy in the other photo from the parking lot. Investigators tried to trace this new photo back to someone, but they had no luck. The envelopes were postmarked from Albuquerque, but had no return address or any other identifying pieces of information. Geez, this case is just one huge tangled web of frustration. What do you think happened to Tara? Was she accidentally hit by two dudes in a truck? Was she abducted and taken to Florida? Or did something else happen? I really wish that sheriff could just tell us more about who gave him that information about those two teen guys instead of just covering things up. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Brandi. See you next time on Killer Bites.